you were doing three sports. Is that right? Or you're in
Yeah.
three disciplines during your college career?
So I was like, well, I guess I can throw the jab because that seems a little similar. He's like, yeah, it's basically just like throwing a softball. Like, you can do it. It'll be great. So I was just like, why not? I want my family, my children to be able to Google mommy and good things pop up about mommy. Can I be late to practice because I hold an e-board position on this organization and we have a meeting in the middle of practice? That in itself takes a lot of gut. I was a star in high school and now I'm not playing. That was hard for me. How to ask someone, like, are you thinking about suicide? So I'm getting this in-depth training, something that I thoroughly enjoyed. I was very scared. Not a lot of MSWs or master's level clinicians in that realm. I was a little hesitant, like, well, I don't know. Am I going to be, reputable? Like, are people going to think that I can do this?
Christine, I'd like to say thanks and welcome to the Second Wind Academy podcast. Really excited to have you on here today. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for the invite, Ryan. Super excited to talk to you and catch up a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a while since we spoke. So I think for everyone who's listening as well, they're going to join in just as we generally catch up, see what's been going on, especially in your world, but also to, I guess, take a little step back to understand what got you to this
Mm-hmm.
point today and sort of some of your experiences. And then we can
Yeah.
really delve into sort of how you're delivering and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, so I'm residing in Greensboro, North Carolina. I went to Shaw University, which is a D2 HBCU in Raleigh. And so I got my bachelor's in psychology, minor in social work there, and I played volleyball, softball, and track and field there. So I played three sports. Everybody asks me, how I did it, and it's honestly a blur. I do
Yeah.
not know, would not recommend. But definitely love the athletic experience there at Shaw. I mean, just shaped me for who I am, honestly, and really drove me to where I wanted to be career wise. And so at Shaw, gosh, I helped get some of the athletic staff trained, mental health first aid certified. That was something that was really big with me. I saw some mental health concerns along the campus, some of my teammates, and just thought that that was really a need. And so I did that at Shaw. I was 2019 CIAA Woman of the Year, and then also 2019 NCAA Top 30 Woman of the Year honoree.
Wow.
And
No,
so,
Christine, you
yeah.
are firing ahead, and I'm trying to take notes and keep up at the same time. So I'm gonna slow down that story because there's so much that
Yeah.
you packed into that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
now, now you're talking here about, and the bit that you mentioned there that's quite amazing is you were doing three sports. Is that right? Or you're in
Yeah.
three disciplines during your college career. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
get I chat with people who do two, and I think that's crazy enough. Just ask me that. Let me ask this first. What made you go
Yeah.
for three?
So the coach my senior year recruited me, basically came to a softball game, saw how I threw, and came to me and was like, hey, would you be interested? And at first I was like, I cannot throw the jab. I definitely can't throw shot put because I'm not that strong and I'm not running any more than I have to. So I was like, well, I guess I can throw the jab because that seems a little similar. He's like, yeah, it's basically just like throwing a softball. Like, you can do it. It'll be great. So I was just like, why not? Why not have some experience, meet different teammates, push something out of my comfort zone? And so, yeah, I did it. I was pretty good. I mean, considering I had never done it before. So it was just something like, it was just a new experience for me. So it was really cool.
So then I think I want to go even further back and just
Hmm.
start sort of trying to understand a bit about your athletic career coming up, sort of
Hmm.
heading into college, and why college was something that was so important to you.
Yeah, I think I made a decision that I wanted to play in college. Mm, in middle school, I was the bad girl for UNC softball team. And by then I was playing like travel softball at that point. Volleyball came in later. I didn't start playing volleyball until middle school. So I developed that even late in the game per se for people that now that I see start playing volleyball as early as how early I started playing softball. But I think middle school I made the exact decision that I knew that I wanted to play at a university by being exposed to UNC and meeting some of the girls and the coaches and etc. Um, I would say I really started going for both after I would say like freshman year of high school
Okay.
was why I was like, let's just see what happens. I didn't really know that dual athletes were a thing. And
So that's
so,
at like 14, 15 years old, where
mhm,
it sounds like you were enjoying both sports,
yeah,
and you saw college as a progression, right? Playing at that
yeah,
as that progression. Now, you mentioned something interesting there. You said that was through seeing some of the college players as well. Is
hmm,
that right? So talk to me about
yeah.
how that influenced you.
Yeah, so some, I mean, Coach P, Coach Papa was the coach currently at UNC, and then Coach J, who's now the head coach at UNCG, she was the assistant. And people, well, one thing I'll say, Christine Knauer, shout out to her because she had my name. I had never met anybody else with the name Christine, and she was the number 7. So for a long time, my number was number 7 because of CK. So that was really like my development of just kind of seeing them and seeing that they were going to school, to a school that they loved, but also playing a sport that they loved. And so I was like, well, hey, I want to do that. They look like they're having fun.
Yeah.
They're traveling. So I was like, why not?
Well, no, that's interesting. Usually, I guess on these conversations, I speak about how we are mentors and the role that we have in others. That's really, I'm just going to say nice to pick that word, but it's really
Hmm.
nice then to hear of how you were inspired by another young person really just playing the sport,
Absolutely.
and the fact you had that same number and the name
Hmm.
Christine
Hmm.
sort of really inspired you to keep on playing.
Yeah. And I mean, it was even crazy. Like she played shortstop, and at that time I played third, but then my position as I developed became shortstop. So it was like really like this full circle moment for me. It's like
Mm.
I wasn't trying to copy her, but she was someone that I just truly looked up to. Like she was someone that excelled academically, she was someone that excelled athletically, and just how I was raised with my mom, like my mom was very focused on both. Like you are an athlete, but you need to also do well in school. So, yeah, I mean, full circle moment. It's like, she probably doesn't even know how much of a big of an influence that she did, or some of the other girls, Constance, or I mean, she was another person. She was a predominantly Black person on a white team. So, like, all these things shaped me. And so it is actually now crazy now on here just to think about what it got me started.
Yes, it is. It is. It's these magical moments, right? These
Yeah.
magical moments, and we never really know um, who we are impacting or who we are influencing by showing up to these things, just doing,
Hmm.
what we enjoy. Now, you mentioned there that CK excelled or was doing well in sport, but also academically. So, for you,
Hmm.
as you were hitting middle school or junior high, as you were saying, well,
Hmm.
what aspirations did you have from an academic perspective?
Middle school, I had no idea what I wanted to be yet. I knew that I wanted to be in the mental health field once I got to high school after I took AP Psych. That was a class that I really wanted,
What
that
is
I
AP?
really
AP Psych. What is
AP is like advanced placement. So it's
that?
like a step above our honors, is what we call it. So we have like the general regular class, then you have honors level, which is a step up, but then the next step up is AP. And so
Okay.
you're able to take a AP test at the end of the year and potentially receive college credit for it.
Right.
So
What was it then about that course that made you realize
yeah.
this is something you want to follow?
I think just learning about behaviors, why people react the way they do, learning about different emotions. And at that time, I was like the strong friend. I think we talk about and hear about this a lot, but I was like the strong friend. Friends came to me and asked me for advice. Friends meant it to me. When they were upset, they came to me. Like I was that person. And funny enough, my family background is surrounded by mental health. And so at one point, I was like, well, I don't want to do mental health at all because my family is it. So my high school, I was actually there. because I was in the veterinary program. So I really went to my high school to be a vet.
Okay.
um, yes, I know. Very, yes, very career switch mind. But after I got to a point in high school where we got into understanding what it took to be a vet, and just full transparency, I was not putting my hand in the cow's butt. I just simply wasn't going to do that. And I also only wanted to work with dogs. So,
Okay. Um,
it just,
I love that purity. I love that. I love dogs. I'm going to be a vet. I want to, what, these other animals? No, I'm not doing that.
nope, I'm okay. Yep, I'm okay. And I mean, we went all in. I was an FFA. I was feeding the chickens and the
Yeah.
goats, and we had a chinchilla. It was all real cute at the time. However, it
Yeah.
was cute for the class, but not something I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Okay. All right. So we've got a young career pivot that happens
Yes,
from vet to moving into much more of the mental health, human
yes.
health space.
Mm-hmm.
I should. Do you have a pet dog now?
I, I have two. And I'm very serious about them. So,
Yeah. Good. Good. There we go. We see. Uh, I love that. It's good. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to
yes.
that. Great. So look, so we were just talking about, well, what was it then about that particular
Yeah.
course that started to give you this
Mm-hmm.
education, and what you've described?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the family background already
Mm-hmm.
operating
Yeah.
in this sort of space, and then that was something, perhaps also helped you to find this as interesting.
Yeah, I definitely think, after I got the piece of like, well, just because my mom is involved in it and my godmom and all these other people around me doesn't necessarily have to be like them, all right? I can still choose my own path in it. And at that time, I didn't even know sports psychology existed. So for a very long time, like junior year of college, I'm thinking I'm just going to specialize in just the general population. It wasn't until more exposure and reaching out to people on LinkedIn where I really said, oh, it's possible for me to specialize in student athletes. And I don't think I would have made that connection that that's something that I wanted to do until I had more life experiences as an athlete as to why that was a need. I think you know, middle school to high school, I encountered some bullying because of the color of my skin, but it wasn't enough for me to be like, oh, this is because I'm an athlete. As an athlete, I excelled. I didn't really have too many struggles in that area. So it didn't cross my mind about athletes until I had life experiences as an athlete where I said,
Mm.
oh, we need a little, it's just a little different type of support.
So talk then. I mean, talk a little bit then about that college experience and
Mm-hmm.
working through sport. So that for you, that life as an athlete, as you
Yeah.
entered college, so you selected the school, entered the
Mm-hmm.
college, from a sporting perspective, where did you hope to get to?
I hoped that I was going to be able to set a legacy for myself, for my family, for my future child at the time, since I didn't have my son yet, wasn't thinking about a child at that point. But, I was just saying, like, I want my family, my child, my children to be able to Google mommy and good things pop up about mommy and things that she did, not just as an athlete, but also academically and how they correlated to both. And so
That's fascinating. It's a good,
yeah,
wonderful way of thinking about it. To be Googled, I actually wrote a while back about Googling yourself and seeing what comes
yep,
up.
mm-hmm,
So, with that in your mind, how did the thought of that legacy, or indeed the thought of when
mm-hmm,
someone Googles my name, this is the kind of thing that I want them to see? How do you
yeah,
feel that shaped how you operated, how you were in
mm,
college?
everything. I think my mindset was very different after freshman year. Freshman year was hard for me because I came from someone from high school that, was in the newspaper constantly and I was a starter. I got moved up from JV to varsity very young. And so I'm coming off of this high and I get my freshman year, I don't play at all, rarely. I mean, maybe I can count on one hand how many times I hit the court my freshman year. So my mindset freshman year was like, I gotta play, I gotta play, I gotta play. Like, What are people thinking about me back at home? I'm not playing. Like, I have to play. After I got through freshman year, my mindset shifted because I knew I experienced burnout, and I knew that I did not want to continue after college. I had no hopes of playing professionally. So then I said, "Well, girl, what you gonna do? What's next?"
Yeah. What made you recognize? Because that's quite tough to have to go
It
through your
is.
freshman year, coming off,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the stardom that gets you there in the first
Mm-hmm.
place, that notoriety. What
Yeah.
changed?
Hmm. I think part of it was my coach allowing me to be a part of other things. Um, I think some people were not willing to ask that question. Like, can I be late to practice because I hold an e-board position on this organization and we have a meeting in the middle of practice? That in itself takes a lot of gut because a lot of people are wrapped up in playing time. Like, well, I can't miss practice because I need to play.
Mhm.
And for me, while I wanted to play, I also enjoyed some of this other stuff. And I think that that also came through in high school. I did other stuff outside of my sport too. So I have to give the kudos to my mom because she allowed me to do that. And so I think really the foundation came from when I was younger because my mom allowed me to be an athlete, but I was also in classes, public speaking classes, right? I was in sewing classes and cooking classes and all these things that I was annoyed with at the time, but I was used, I knew that I was someone else outside of my sport. So it was easier for me to get to that point. But
Yeah.
as we continue on, that's why I'm here, is that I know that that's not the average day for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. It is quite different. And yeah, indeed, kudos to your mum to really
Mm-hmm.
emphasizing activities as a child, activities outside of sport. So
Mm-hmm.
you could feel like you're more than that. So,
Yeah.
so when you hit then, so in college, you realized, okay, I'm not taking this pro.
Mm-hmm.
I have these other interests, other I guess things that really challenge you in some respect. So
Yeah.
what types of things were they that
Yeah.
enabled you to switch off from sport?
So I was a part of different organizations. My major had an organization with psychology. I was in something for domestic violence awareness, mental health, Queens in You, which was like women's empowerment, uplifting. So I was in just a variety of different things. But I think also the kicker for me was I was in SAC, which is the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. And so I held the vice president position in that realm. And so that also was like another game changer. That's like a whole nother thing, but it circles back to what I'm now giving back to SAC now with my conference. But that has opened up doors that I didn't even know were open.
So tell me about what is SAC? What is that student
Yeah,
advisory committee?
yes, so that is basically like the liaison for athletes where we go in and we can express concerns that we might have as athletes, things that we want to see for athletes better, whether it's like mental health related, whether it's physical, like going to the training room, just an area to promote student athletes, but also an area and a space for student athletes to also express their concern. And so me and the president were to take that back to our SAC liaison who was over SAC, and then they would take it back to the athletic director or things like that. So it's just a safe space for athletes.
Yeah. So whilst you were a member of that advisory, the student athlete committee and working in SAC, um,
Mm-hmm.
what did you learn? How did that, what did you learn during that piece? Because you're
Yeah.
part of that body whilst being an
Mm-hmm.
athlete. How do you think that
Yeah.
helped shape you?
It pushed me a lot. The first time I was able to go to the CIAA men's and women's basketball conference, they actually invited two people from SAC from each representing school in the CIAA to go there for free. And so when I went for the first time, I was in there with other SAC presidents, vice presidents, whomever, and they were people that had also excelled in things outside of their sport too. So it was like a realization of almost like we're all family now, like, but it was, you check the next person beside you. We're competitive, so it's like, oh, you did that. You did that. And so it's like like I thought I was doing a lot, but you're doing a lot too. So for me, that was really eye opening to see like, okay, people also really care about what they do outside of their sport as well. So it just pushed me, which was good. It wasn't necessarily competition, but it was just
Mm.
insight for me to be like, keep going.
How important is it, or how important do you see it for yourself back then that you
Hmm.
were going down that track of doing things outside of sport whilst continuing as a student athlete?
Yeah, so important. Um, it was just so important for my development as a person, how to carry yourself. I learned how to represent myself in a way, and just the small things like business casual, making sure your resume is updated, having a cover letter, what questions to ask when you go up to a recruiter. Like I learned all of these things. But something too that the commissioner really, hounds in on is also our mental health. So I really enjoyed the panels and the authenticity that the panelists always provide to us about like, listen, when you get out of here, it's gonna be a little rocky. It's a little rough. And so I appreciate that transparency too, but also to know like you're in a room that is preparing you to be able to succeed. And so I don't know what life would have been like if I hadn't had that opportunity. That's a really, really big opportunity for me, that I hold really near and dear to my heart. So I just think it was just a huge milestone for me.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, it really is. And sometimes we don't know what we're going to learn when we step into these opportunities, but taking
Absolutely.
that leap is the first part, right? And often the bravest part.
Absolutely.
And it
Hmm.
sounds like you've taken a lot from it. I'm curious, I think you were saying it was perhaps in your junior year where you started to understand this realm of
Hmm.
sport psychology, or indeed the role of psychology inside sport.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit then of how that emerged for you.
Hmm. I definitely think after my freshman year, after I saw how I kind of navigated and managed like how attached and how concerned I was that I wasn't playing, and not necessarily how it felt for me, but what I thought other people were thinking of me. Right? I didn't have any proof that anybody was thinking anything, but I was just so concerned because I was a star in high school and now I'm not playing. That was hard for me. Um, and I would say I developed my own mental health challenges, but my support system was really good. But I saw other athletes go through different things, whether it was through injury or just navigating life things on the inside, but them transparenting to other things outside and coping skills and alcohol and drugs and all these things. And so I was like, God, like, there's not a person for us. Like, there has to be a person for us as far as athletes because we do go through um, just different things, I think, of our peers that aren't athletes in college.
Like like what? What do you think of
Yeah.
when you think of the differences that student athletes go through that
Hmm.
typical students don't?
Yeah. I definitely think the scheduling piece, we just don't, we have to really grind if we want more opportunities as far as like internships and being able to go to career fairs and all those things because we have those commitments. We're gone half the time traveling. We have two, three, four, five practices on top of our classes. So I think that piece is different. Also, we're in our bubble. We report to school before everybody else. So we're there before the campus opens up to everyone. So we're so used to our people, our bubble, so then it could be hard to navigating friendships outside of our teammates. Um, and then also just this life that we've dedicated our life to sport. So we've been trained to go 110 miles per hour in this one area of our life that thinking about anything else is just hard. And so I just think that the timing piece really is the biggest thing is just the opportunity. We have to be so selective, so intentional on making sure that we know how to have a cover letter, a resume, internships, community service, all of that. It's not to say that people that are working during school and don't also have to navigate that. I just think it's different when you also add that mental component of like, we've been going 110 on this one thing all life. And so now when something throws a wrench in that, now we're not only throwing in a wrench of what we're used to, but now you want us to cope with it too, when coping is our sport. So it's a lot of back and forth.
It's interesting. I've never thought of, I've never written down what those differences are for a student
Hmm.
athlete compared to everyone else. And yeah,
Yeah.
that time management, definitely a key one. I think the bit that I'd never really thought of is getting onto campus early, being there
Hmm.
before everyone else. Used to this, used to it being relatively empty, except for your
Hmm.
people for that morning practice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Even
So
going to the calf.
yeah.
We go to the calf usually with our friends because it's after practice.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's all the things. Like I remember even during homecoming, like when I was, we would be like looking at the clock, like what time are we going to get back? Because maybe we can make the pep rally. Like we're traveling on, these key things, and we're missing out on things of normalcy that is for the whole campus. But sometimes we had to miss out because of our sport. But we're used to that. But also, college is that foundation, where you should get community service and you should have an internship and you need to be networking. But sometimes it's just hard.
Yeah, simple as that. It is. It is hard. I guess I can think of Jim who joined me on the show a while back, and he says athletes, they take the hard path, they run uphill, and
Yep.
that's really what starts to set athletes apart, right? Certainly
Hmm.
those elite athletes. Um, so for you, recognizing, all right, sports psychology, that could be somewhere where you might move into.
Hmm.
What shifts did you have to make in order to make that
Hmm.
happen? What sort of experiences did you start to search for outside of sport?
Yeah. I search for opportunities. I mean, it's really, really hard as a psychology major without a license to really get anything. So I found out about the crisis text line, which is a service for individuals. They can text 741-741 and text home. That'll open up the crisis hotline. And so I volunteered there. So I had this very intense training. This is the first time that I'm learning how to ask someone, like, are you thinking about suicide? So I'm getting this in-depth training, something that I thoroughly enjoyed. I was very scared um, at first, but it was just a great experience. It was like something I could put on my resume and be like, hey, like, I do know how to do an assessment. I do know how to do a risk assessment to ask someone and how to de-escalate and that stuff. So I started there. That was my first thing.
Well, kudos to you for stepping into the front line. Like
Yeah.
you went straight in to learn. Again, taking that hard.
Mm-hmm.
You went right at the front end, saying, "I'm going to learn by doing."
Yeah.
Again, quite an athletic trait. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I understand correctly, that crisis line is a generalist line. That's not
Yes.
just for athletes. Is that true?
Nope.
Yeah.
Yep, that's for everyone. Yep, it is for everyone. And I really liked the idea because of someone who doesn't like to talk about their feelings like outwardly. I love to write it down in a journal. I can send you a note and share it with you. I'll do that all day. But if we have to do this and share my feelings, I'm just a little on the shyer side. So I like the idea where, people didn't necessarily have to talk on a phone. It can just be a text back and forth. So that's what really pulled me to that because I like that as an option.
Do you know what? This is that's really good. Actually, I didn't truly appreciate that type of line of communication opened up. But when I
Mm-hmm.
think about um, myself, that as I communicate with young athletes and even my children, I can understand why the messaging as
Yes.
a mode of comms is
Mm-hmm.
very appealing to
Yeah.
individuals. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so taking that experience, that journalist experience, communicating
Mm-hmm.
through that channel, how do you think that helped you to for what came next?
Yeah. I think I then started to explore people on LinkedIn. And so at the time, the person that I think really shaped my next move was Tish Gearin, and she was can't remember her exact title, but she worked with the Panthers. I think she was the director of player wellness, maybe. So she was someone because I was
And so
going back and forth.
when you say Panthers, you mean
Hmm.
you
Carolina Panthers.
okay?
Yes, the NFL team. Yes. And at that point, I wanted to focus on NFL players. Why? I do not know. I understand now why now, but at that time I didn't have a why. I just think I thought it was pretty cool at that point. Um,
It's a good enough reason to
but
start.
yeah, and so she has an MSW, and so that's what I was going back and forth with when we talk about opportunities. I didn't feel like I was prepared to go straight to my doctorate after I left Shaw. Quite honestly, I just didn't feel comfortable. It was really scary for me. Dissertation made me want to faint, and I just didn't know if I was academically prepared. Not that Shaw didn't academically prepare me. I just think that I balanced street sports and academics, and maybe could I've done a little bit more to prepare me academically, maybe. And so I was like, well, what could I do next? And so she had an MSW. She talked to me. I messaged her. She messaged me
just to
back.
just to bring back again, she had a
Yeah,
what did you say?
a master's in social work, so an MSW.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So that's when I found out about social work. Didn't know about social work. My mom was a social worker in a different realm, but didn't really consider social work. She said, listen, this is what I have. This is what you need to do to get here. You don't necessarily have to get your PhD. And I said, bet, awesome. I can do another 2 years. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
easy. And so that's where my minor came in. And then, I wasn't going to change my entire major because, that was going to be a lot.
Yeah.
But I could add in on minor and add some extra classes. So that's kind of what pursued me to get my MSW as well.
Yeah. And so again, that family background, they've got that experience, so that perhaps in the
Mm-hmm.
back, is that bit of influence. But what you really started to see was you were starting to think about where you wanted to work,
Absolutely.
which environment did you want to operate in. Obviously, from that sporting world, probably the largest sporting team in Carolina is where you're wanting to head to.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yep.
and so from there you were able to see, well, in that environment, what types
Mm-hmm.
of roles might work. And
Yeah.
do you know what's interesting? So you went there not with the idea of having to study,
Mm-mm.
but it sounds like the environment and the opportunity was
Mm-hmm.
so strong that it's like, well, yeah, I can study. I'm happy to do more studies to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Mm-hmm.
is that fair?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's definitely fair. I knew that I had to go to grad school because I was getting my bachelor's in psychology. I didn't know what I was going to go to grad school for.
Hmm.
Um, and so I appreciate the guidance because I also think in the sports world, you see a lot of PhDs and a lot of PsyDs, um, not a lot of MSWs or master's level clinicians in that realm. And so I was a little hesitant, like, well, I don't know. Am I going to be reputable? Like, are people going to think that I can do this? But the more I talk to people and the more that I see, I will stand on my MSW to fight in the same ring as people with doctoral degrees. And I'm working on my doctoral degree. So again, but I really use my MSW as my selling point. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just appreciate the guidance.
Yeah, it's really good because there's more than one route to get into that
Absolutely.
field, and indeed then to stay there. And
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like for you there's a balance where you're in the area, now you're in where you want to be.
Right.
Now you're starting to build that capability and back
Yes.
it up with the going through doctoral, I guess, structure to get
Mm-hmm.
to be next.
Yeah, I definitely think it was cool. Like she was like my gateway. And so then I started to research more people, and then you see more people doing working with athletes. I'm like, oh, okay, you started as an English major, and then you went and got your master's in this, and oh, okay. And I mean, really, I think I discredited myself too because I'm like, girl, tap tap, like you're about to graduate, you play 3 sports in college, like that's rare, right? NCAA top 30, like hello, like I think I also had to take a step back and realize who I was. Like
Mm.
these are things that you accomplished that not everybody can say they accomplished. So also put some credit on yourself.
Yeah. Well, why do you think why do you think we do that? Why as an athlete do we not always appreciate the
Hmm.
the effort, the hard work, what we've achieved, and you're like, no, that doesn't matter anymore because
Hmm.
I'm off the court. It doesn't matter what. Why do you think we do
Yeah. I mean, I think it's because like all our life someone is telling us, yeah, that's great, you achieved that, but this is also your next thing that you need to focus on. And so it's just like a continuous thing of like there's just always something else. And so it's like you win one championship, well, you need to win two, and then now you need to win three, and then
Hmm.
well, you also need to be MVP, and then you also need to do this,
Yeah.
and like, well, you get this, now you know, get invited to the Pro Bowl. So I mean, it's like we always get things added on, so you don't really get to sit in the season to appreciate it. You're so focused on the next season. And so I think for me, I was so focused on trying to get to my next place, I didn't even sit to think what I was doing at Shaw and how that was going to prepare me for my next season.
Yeah. How much do you think that mentality has changed for you, since you've stopped being that student athlete?
Uh, I still think it's something that I struggle with now. I guess I wouldn't say struggle, but
Mm.
I now to this day I work like 7 jobs. I have like 7 different projects because I just don't know what idle time looks like for me, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like to not have anything on my plate. I know how to juggle a whole lot of things, and I think I'm doing something well, and then something else comes to my head like, oh, but you could make this better. And I just think it's the mentality of an athlete. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think you do have to slow it down so you don't burn yourself out as an adult. But I wouldn't trade that piece about me because I never settle. I'm never stagnant. It's always up for me. So I appreciate that part of me, but I just think it's the nature of the game.
Mhm. So then, given where you are today, let's anchor in a little bit on
Hmm.
what you're up to today. You mentioned 7 different projects, which I'm sure don't include the family.
Yeah,
So let's
no.
make it 8, maybe 9. Okay,
Yeah.
different things that we're working on at the moment. So for you as an athlete, coming out, well, actually, I'm saying this, so it's a long way around to get to a question, but
Hmm.
many people do one sport in college. You did 3.
Hmm.
So here now you're saying you're doing multiple projects outside,
Hmm.
in your world, whereas perhaps others would do fewer. So
Yeah.
when you think then about where you're heading, so, you know, how would you describe what is next for you?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good one. I think I'm in the works of various partnerships with colleges to really implement this life after sport thing.
Mhm.
That is just something that I know I'm very passionate about, um, because I've seen it, but I've also excelled in it. And so I use my NCAA honor as my selling point because I did not get there because of my athletic achievements, really. They didn't care about any of that. They did, but the most was like, what did you do outside of that? And
Mhm.
so, I mean, that's the selling point is like, listen, I did this. I graduated with honors. I was one of the top 30 in the nation. This works. This is something that we should be focusing on. And so I'm working on various things to try to implement that in some of the colleges and universities that I'm working with.
Mhm.
Of course, I have my own business where I do one-on-one coaching. I really like that. I really like meeting with the individual student athlete.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
Mhm.
But also knowing institutions, we need something like that. And a lot of the Power Five,
Yeah.
big schools have that. I'm wanting like the smaller D1s and D2s and D3s to have that as well.
Yeah. And look, what I love about the theme, and that theme is you are picking up your experience as a student athlete,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, and you're helping current student athletes to set themselves up for that life after sport.
Absolutely.
But
Hmm.
you're doing that not just from your playing experience, but also from your studies, and also
Yes.
from that work experience and extracurricular things that you were doing at the same time.
Absolutely. I'm a big sports person. Any football player I work with, which is what I primarily did when I worked at NC State, was like, I want you to make it to the league. I hope you get there. Do not forget about me. don't don't forget about little old me when you make it there. But I care so much more about you than you making it to the league. Like
Mhm.
we are a small percentage that even make it to college athletics,
Yeah.
right? It was already a small percentage.
Mhm.
Then we go even smaller when we talk about pro. So it's not me saying don't think about this, but it's like understand who you are outside your sport so that if that's not your time or your calling in that season, you know how to do an interview. You have a resume, you have a cover letter, you know some of these, what are your strengths, what are your challenges. You just know how to navigate
Mm.
the other set of your identity. Like your fingerprint includes more than just one piece of you. So it's just really my goal is to help athletes understand that.
Yeah. So for you, when you think about what challenges did you have as you opted to leave sport, graduate
Mm-hmm.
with, leave sport? What are the things that made, what stands out for you as some of the biggest challenges for you and your athletic career transition?
My biggest one was the physical aspect, believe it or not, was working out.
Mm.
To this day, it is still a challenge. I have to shout out my strength coach, Coach Wayne Hall. He's a strength coach currently at Shaw University. When I talk about people that were inspirational in my life, people that shaped me for who I am during my time in college and beyond, he is one of those people. And so I didn't realize how spoiled I was
Mm.
because I would walk in, I would look at the board, and I wouldn't ask any questions. You want me to do 17 down and backs? I did them. You want me to do how many burpees? I did them. And I did them and then I left. I didn't have to think about it. When I graduated, I said, oh, I need to remember what works out what body. I can't just do arms, legs, tries, buys, back, all in the same day. There's people in here. I've gained weight. I'm not, it was so much for me. Um, it is still so much for me.
So what have you done to get through that?
Mm. um, I'm still in contact with Coach Hall, so he does still send me workouts. Um,
He's now getting, he's going to get messages from everybody now say, hey,
he is
did that work?
definitely highly recommend. There is not. It's just not the same. Before I started trying to go back to him now as someone that has had a kid who is definitely not in athletic shape at all. I was working out maybe consistently for a month before I reached back out to him and said, "Hey, like I'm gonna drive to Raleigh, which is like an hour and a half drive for me from Greensboro. I'm gonna drive on my Mondays to come work out with you at least once a week." That is a testament to just kind of how he is, but um, giving myself some grace. Sorry, I went off on a tangent, but giving myself some grace is what has helped me. Not comparing myself to my future, my past athletic self has helped me. And to change the narrative, right? Because I think when I was at Shaw, I did go through this big transformation thanks to Coach Hall. I was the heaviest I'd ever been in life, and then I became the smallest I had ever became in life. And a part of that was just noticing small things that I couldn't do that I wanted to be able to do, but also like how my jersey was fitting and what that looked like, girl stuff, in a sense of just how we look in our jerseys and stuff. Um, but you have to give yourself some grace, because I know that that was a season of my life. I want to just be healthy in this season. I'm not competing. I'm not, you know, trying to get in playtime. Just have a great healthy life. And so I had to change my mindset of like, why am I working out? I'm not working out because I'm forced to or because I'm gonna get docked on playing time. I'm
Mm.
working out and I want to be healthy because I want to be healthy for myself. I want to have a life, nice, long living life for my son.
Yeah.
That's why I'm working out.
Hmm. And so it's that change of purpose. And
Absolutely.
so for you initially, as we spoke about there, you went in the gym, everything's up on the board. This is telling you
Yeah.
what you're going to do. Boom, I'll work
Yep.
out, no question, and I'm gone.
Yep.
And that you sort of knew was because coach had put it up there to make you a
Yep.
better athlete.
Yep.
And so without that reference point, it's like, well, what am I doing this? Why am I here? And so you've done the
Hmm.
work now to find that purpose, which is
Yeah.
live a healthy life, be
Yeah.
able to go around with your son to do these kind
Hmm.
of things, right? And that makes that
Absolutely.
special.
Yeah. And I definitely think too, you made a good point of like, he did that to make me a better athlete. And I think also to the confidence piece. Like I went in there and if he told me to lift, 195 pounds, okay, fine.
Hmm.
And so I think too, like learning that confidence in myself, like you're still strong, you're still powerful, you can still lift, but it took me up until a couple weeks ago when I went back to work out with him, when he had me working out with the current softball players, lifting what they were lifting. And I looked at him like, I said I needed some alterations, and you didn't give me any, but I did it. And so
Yes.
I think it was like a testament of like that confidence that I had while at Shaw. It's still there.
Yeah.
Different life experiences have happened, but that grit is still there. And so sometimes you also just need that reminder.
Hi, it's Ryan Gonsalves here. Thanks for tuning in today. I just want to take a moment to ask you an important favor. To help grow this channel, one thing will do that above more than anything else. Please hit that subscribe button. By hitting that subscribe button, you help me to grow the channel, allowing me to create more tailored content, improving the quality, and also to develop additional services such as the workshops, one-on-one sessions specifically designed to support elite athletes in that difficult transition to that career beyond sport. So if you want to join me on this journey to help inspire, guide, and connect individuals to find their second wind, please hit that subscribe button. Yes, yeah, you do. Like you say, it's still in there. It was always in there
Mm-hmm.
as an athlete. And even as
Right.
we come out and shift careers, we pivot careers to that
Mm-hmm.
extent, it's still there. And you found
Correct.
it from that athletic side. So,
Yes.
so look, it makes me then ask, and I appreciate the time as well. But when you're then thinking of, you like the one-on-one with athletes, that's something you said you really, is
Mm-hmm.
your jam. What types of guidance do you give to them for, to help them with that transition, to help bring their intrinsic capabilities
Mm-hmm.
and use that in, I'll say, the more traditional workforce? What sort of advice do
Yeah.
you give
I think the biggest thing is the transferable skills. Like we have to understand and articulate why being an athlete has taught us so much in different life lessons. And I think, you know, the biggest thing is like, well, what's your strengths? I don't know. I'm a captain. Okay. Well, how can you translate that for someone that's offering you a job? Instead of saying I'm a captain, how does that translate to life? Being able to manage different personalities, being a leader, being punctual, being accountable, getting used to framing these athletic experiences into transferable skills. Because sometimes we just feel like, well, what did you do in college? I was an athlete. I was on the basketball team. Okay, what else should you do? Well, I didn't really have time to do anything else because I was an athlete. Right. Shifting our mindset, shifting our verbiage of how we say that. Well, I was able to navigate and do teamwork. So I'm going to be a great, effective person on being able to work on a team and know how to know my role and shift my role in various ways. I'm very flexible and adaptable, right? Because you have to be that as an athlete. So understanding you weren't just an athlete, like you learned all of these skills, even if you played one match or all 50, your experience as a whole has shaped you to learn so many different things and how they can navigate into life. So it's really that mindset piece of understanding your fingerprint. And I say that all the time. When you go and put your fingerprint down, all these different lines appear. It's not just one line, and it's unique to you. So my grit that I had, understanding who I was as a person, it wasn't athlete Christine. It was just Christine. I'm just a gritty person. My athletic experience just enhanced that.
them?
But you take that away, I still have grit.
Yeah.
So helping them understand, like, just because one of your identities is closing doesn't mean that all of those things go away. You're
Mm.
still that person. So
Yeah.
helping them understand that is just really important.
That's wonderful. And if I understand, as I'm taking notes here, but if I understand, I like that understanding that you're more than just a fingerprint. So
Yep.
recognizing that mindset shift is you're more
Mm-hmm.
than just the athlete. There's so much more to you. And that's
Absolutely.
perhaps that, that key thing. That second one you mentioned then is about bringing out those transferable skills and
Mm-hmm.
capabilities of
Absolutely.
captain, you're a leadership, you're in a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
That teamwork really comes out.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the last bit you help them to do is really to articulate that to, well, how do you tell people? You tell them what
Mm-hmm.
to voice or talking to them, but then also making sure you've got a resume. You can write it down,
Yes,
document it in that way. And so I like that the fingerprint, the transferable skills, and being able to truly articulate or communicate that message out. I think for me
absolutely.
that is really clear. I really like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so look, I've got to say thank you very much for sharing your journey. And I'm going to say journey so far,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of you and your career. And look, there are people who are going to be watching and listening who are going to want to reach out. We'll put information in the show
Yeah.
notes, but please just tell us what's, excuse me, what's a good way to perhaps get in touch with you and follow your journey.
Yes, so definitely you can shoot me an email at peakpotentialjourney@gmail.com. My business number is 336-988-4622. And then my Instagram handle is Peak Potential Journey. And then you can follow me on LinkedIn under Christine Ngeve.
Okay, wonderful. Christine, once again, thanks for joining me today on the Second Wind Academy podcast.
Thank you, Ryan, for having me. It's been a pleasure.